Oh hey, I didn't see you there. There's only 1 week until Dark Season 3, and if there's one thing that I love just as much as watching the show, it's theorizing and talking about it. Before I get into my new theories, I'm going to quickly address some good points that were brought up in the comments on my previous videos. Firstly, apparently I'm an idiot, and I didn't know that the Instagram account @dark_Netflix is a fan account. And there I was, feeling that I was so smart with my analysis of the quiz questions. Just to be clear, I still think that Hannah is the lady in the lake. It just seems that I have less evidence now. Up next, Hammer Tapping made the point, wouldn't Bartos know his father's car? This was in relation to my theory that Alexander Tiedemann lent Noah a car with his initials in the number plate. I suppose this could ruin the theory, but I still think it's possible. I mean, it definitely is possible. Alexander Tiedemann's rich. Do you not think that he could have a car kept at the power plant that the family doesn't know about? Yeah, I think that's possible. This reminds me, I want to reiterate. I know most of the theories that I put out here might not come true, but it's really fun trying to think of them and see what might happen. So make sure to leave a comment if you disagree with anything that I have to say, or have an idea yourself. I would really like to discuss this with you, because, again, it's my favourite show, and I just love talking about it. Righto, let's get into some new theories. The advertising for the show has been saying that everything is the same but different. Obviously this refers to the alt world. There is another theory, however, that could be hinted at with this tagline. What if everything being the same but different referred to each cycle is the same but different? As in, each time the cycle repeats, the events that happen are slightly different. This would explain things like changes to the text of newspaper articles. For example, the newspaper article describing Egon's death changes at certain points. Could this be because we're seeing the same thing but in a different cycle? Jonas does say to Claudia in episode 7, season 2, that she can save Regina the next time around, so this insinuates that the cycles can be different. There is also a lot of talk about the last cycle by Sigmundus. This implies that the last one will be different than the rest. Maybe Adam knows how to start the cycle that will be different enough to break the cycle completely, or lead them to a new world which has been hinted at as their aim. Unfortunately, the problem is, Adam no longer has an older version of himself to measure against. Perhaps the Adam of the previous cycle also thought that they were about to change everything, and the Adam we're following is just doomed to fail like the previous one did. So I thought I'd spend most of this video going through each character that we have reason to doubt their parentage, as well as the characters whose parents are yet to be revealed. So without further ado, let's go. In my Religion and Mythology series, I have covered some of the evidence for Agnes and Noah being the children of Jonas and Alt Marta. This theory is based on the parallels with the story of Cain and Abel. Check it out if you want to know more. As for other possibilities, we could literally choose any other 2 characters, and it would kinda make sense. That's just how this show is, but I'll give you a few ideas. There are a lot of people who think that Magnus and Franziska could be Agnes and Noah's parents. This is a really strange one, because when I watched season 2, my natural reaction was that there was no way they couldn't be. But having time to think about it now, I have a number of doubts in this theory. For example, when older Bartos, or the man in the cave officially, is talking to young Noah before he's killed, he makes reference to the fact that Adam took in Noah. I'm sure this could mean just took into Sigmundus, but knowing the creators, every word is important. I doubt they would have said this if Magnus and Franziska were the parents of Agnes and Noah. Also, the term taking them in implies that Adam is a parental figure, which I don't know about you, but as a father myself, I don't appreciate others making themselves parents of my kids. I'm sure Magnus and Franziska wouldn't like it either. This also hurts the Jonas and Alt Marta being Agnes and Noah's parents, because if they were, why on earth would they have to take them in? Agnes says to Egon in season 1 that her grandmother was from Winden. She's interrupted by Claudia and doesn't finish. Subterranean homesick alien suggests that this is foreshadowing for Bartos being Agnes's father, because it would make Claudia, i.e. the one who interrupted her grandmother that she was talking about. Well, actually it's her great-grandmother, but still. I suppose this is possible. She probably wouldn't view Bartos as coming from Winden because he's a traveller, but her grandmother, Regina, definitely came from Winden. But, unfortunately, I don't buy this, because it would mean that Agnes knowingly started a romantic relationship with her own great-great-granny. Ew! That's gross! I don't think so. Who could be her grandmother from Winden, though? It's hard to know, because all the candidates would also mean that her parents are from Winden. And if this is the case, why on earth would she say that her grandmother's from Winden and not her parents? Another idea that I came up with, which I thought was pretty interesting, is that HD Townhouse from the alternate world could actually be the father of Agnes and Noah. It would be pretty interesting to have Prime HD Townhouse be tasked with raising his alternate self's granddaughter. As for who the mother would be, I'm not really sure in this case. As usual, if you have a theory, put it in the comments. And finally, this is particularly difficult to predict, because we have no idea if Agnes is called Nielsen from her parents or her husband. We also have no idea where the name Toba comes from for Noah. It might be that a character we haven't even met is called Toba, and that's their dad, and Agnes was Agnes Toba before getting married. Hannah is a character who garners a lot of hate amongst the audience, and rightfully so in my opinion. Her parentage has been kind of ignored in the show itself. However, the fact that she has no confirmed mother begs questioning. Could Hannah be the result of time travel like so many other characters? There's been so little time given to this question that there's no point in throwing out a random name. I will say, however, I think that it will be like Charlotte in Season 2. In Season 1, there was no one asking the question, who are Charlotte's parents? We know the plan was there. I mean, the watch that Noah gave to Elizabeth to give to Charlotte is proof of that. However, we were no way questioning it until Season 2. I think that if Hannah's mother is revealed, it'll be a new story in Season 3 that has links to Seasons 1 and 2 that we didn't realise till after. Katarina's parents seem to be pretty well agreed on in the fandom. Her maiden name is Albers, which is the same as the surname as the farmer from Season 1 in 1986, who Egon went to see when 33 of his sheep died, so this is probably her dad. As for her mother, through pictures that have been released, it seems Katarina's mother is the character who works in the mental institution, which is very surprising, because we know her mother is abusive and gave her a black eye in Season 1. You would think that someone who works with the mentally unwell would be a caring person. But I suppose this is realistic, because you never know who's an abuser. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like a happy ending for Katarina, who, due to released photographs and comparing costumes, it can be assumed that she's been beaten by her own mother in 1987. Perhaps her mother gets spooked by her middle-aged daughter appearing, and starts to beat her with a rock. This also means that in the time between 1987 and 2020, Katarina has had a mother in prison for murder the whole time. So this is background for Katarina that we didn't know when we were watching Season 1 and 2. I'm also willing to bet that Katarina probably goes to stop her mother committing the murder, without realizing that it's actually her that gets killed. Maybe she goes to see her mother at work, but instead she saw Ulrich. While there, she probably realized that her mother hadn't committed the murder yet, so she goes to try and stop it, and that's where she gets killed. This would be a nice parallel to Claudia doing the same thing with her father, kind of, and with Jonas and his father. I got a comment from Jose Navarro saying that he thinks that the coat the character is wearing in the desert is the same as the coat that Katarina is wearing in some released images in 1987. This would be cool. Maybe she's been in the desert a couple of months before Jonas and Altmarta rescue her. I like this a lot. Perhaps she then demands to be taken to the 80s, because she wants to bring Mikkel back. Thanks, Jose. I love it. It seems, based on the double-sided family tree from the trailer, that the parentage of Tronto Nielsen could be key to the whole show. Bartos has been highly theorized to be Agnes's husband. I personally have made allusions to this in my videos in the past, but the more I think of it, the more I don't like it. I think Bartos will be someone's dad, but for me, it's not Tronto. The big theory coming out of Season 1 was that Bartos was Noah, and that turned out not to be true. In fact, Noah literally killed that theory. So it's funny that Bartos is the subject of Season 2's most widely believed theory too. In my last General Theories video, I proposed a wild idea that Alt Mikkel is Tronto's dad. I admit this is very unlikely, but I thought it was fun. One of the main drawbacks of this theory would be the fact that Alt Mikkel would have to be Tronto and Alt Tronto's father, which I admit is unlikely. But the more I think about it, the infinity symbol in the middle of the family tree makes sense to be just one person. Perhaps there does exist a character who's both Tronto's father and Alt Tronto's father. Here's a thought. Go with me on this. What if Eve's mission is to continue the cycle as normal, because that's the only way to save Jonas? But Adam wants to end it, and doesn't care if he never exists, he just wants to fix time, or create a new world without it, as he says. Maybe the new trio of characters could be Tronto's father, and Alt Tronto's father. I mean, if they follow Eve, then they must also want the cycle to continue, so maybe that's their duty, maybe that's what they have to do. I mean, what do we know about Tronto's father? We know he's a pastor, or I suppose this could be interpreted as a religious man or a preacher. But also, this trio seems to have a lot of faith in Eve's plan, so maybe that's what Agnes was alluding to. This made everyone assume that it was Noah at the start. And didn't we all feel so proud of ourselves for connecting the dots? How naive were we? We also know that Tronto's father was meant to be an abuser. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, this guy seems like the type. I don't know about you. Oh my god, I just had another idea, like literally whilst writing this.
Stop the pressures!
I swear, I just had another idea. And I think it might be true. Maybe the two worlds were one world at some point. And then there was a point at which they deviated. There may have been an event which split the worlds into two. So Tronto and Alt Tronto were actually just one Tronto who was born before the split. So Tronto's dad only had to father Tronto, and then the world split and so did Tronto. Prime Tronto and alternate Tronto were created in the event. But this also means obviously everyone else in the world, like Agnes and Noah, also split into two people at this point. So just to clarify, I'm putting forward the idea that both worlds came from one. They have the same history. Then, due to some event, which I'm assuming based off the family tree from the trailer, has something to do with Tronto's father, they split into two. Actually, if you're still confused, let's let Dr. Emmett Brown explain it.
Imagine that this line represents time. There's the present, 1985, the future, and the past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985.
What was the event, though? Perhaps time travel was invented in the original world, and Tronto's father went back in time to change something. That doesn't really fit, actually, with the show's ethos. That ethos being that everything that will happen has happened already. I'm sure this theory will develop in my mind, it's just very fresh at the minute. Also, this theory may imply that Agnes and Noah were not a result of time travel, or from the alternate world. They might still be, but I can't tie these two theories together in my mind yet. Or it may be that time travel existed in the world before the split in the worlds. Another question I have is, when the event happened to split the worlds, was there a normal world and an alternate world, like the Back to the Future example? Or was it two new worlds created, so to speak? Two different alternate worlds that we've been seeing. When time deviated, did it deviate in two directions? Or did the main timeline continue with the two worlds that we've seen either side of it? This would certainly match the idea of the painting at Adam's lair, where two worlds in darkness are being blown into the center to create a new world. Or maybe what they want to do is to join them back to the original timeline. Thought this one was pretty cool. We'll see what happens. I haven't got much to say about this one. It is heavily implied that Tronto is Regina's father due to Claudia and him having an affair. I'm sure there's other theories, but there's nothing that's convinced me beyond Tronto. So if you have an idea, put it in the comments, but otherwise, I think the subtext for this one is pretty evident. Celia is a character that I'm very wary of predicting, as we know next to nothing about her, and as such, I've put very little thought into it, to be honest. Anything I would say is just a guess. I don't want to get excited for an idea that I completely invented myself. I think I'll just trust the creators and wait to see what happened here. Having said that, I got another comment from Subterranean Homesick Alien, with a theory that Celia might be the mother of Noah and Agnes, due to the pictures being grouped together in the family wall. This might be the case, but I actually thought of a different possibility for the groupings of these photographs. At the top of the wall, we have the three children that were used as tests for Noah's time machine in the bunker, and they all ended up dead. Here's the theory. What if the three pictures at the bottom are the people who were sent through the worlds in early test versions of the world jumping device? Obviously the main difference is that these tests actually worked. Although this goes against many things I've said already in this video, it would explain Adam having to take in Noah and Agnes. This theory of Noah being a traveller from the other dimension brings up some interesting questions. Who is the Noah in the Season 3 trailer then? I have stated before that he's probably going to be Hanno Tobar due to Adam not giving him the name Noah. However, if this theory that Noah is from the alt world is correct, then that means that the Hanno Tobar in the trailer is actually the real Prime Noah. And maybe he's just been living in the Prime world as normal, without any knowledge of anything. I mean, this moment in the trailer might actually be him being filled in on some crazy stuff. He does look pretty shocked. I was hoping to have time to include this next part in my next religion and mythology series before season 3 came out, but at this point I don't think it's feasible, so I'll say it here. The name Hanno means gift from God, and the name Tobar is a variant of pigeon or dove. So Hanno Tobar is a dove or pigeon that is a gift from God. This of course implies that he'll be the one to lead the human race to safety, like in the story of Noah's Ark. What does this mean? What will Hanno Tobar have to do? Will he be the one to align the worlds? As I've mentioned before, Boris is one of the most interesting characters to me, and his role in the greater storyline is intriguing. There are many things to wonder about Mr. Naivold, but in this video I'm going to focus on his parentage. There's been a lot of speculation about Hannah having a child. I personally am not a fan of the theory that Hannah, or prime Hannah, will have a child, because she's 46 when she goes back in time. Having said that, old Hannah could have a child. We already know that Katarina is separated from Ulrich. What we don't know is when this happened. It may have happened 10 years in the past, 15 years in the past. Mikkel's about 13, so let's say it's no more than 12 years ago that old Katarina and old Ulrich split up. I do think that old Ulrich and old Hannah will be together, and I think they might have a child. Now a lot's been made of Boris Naivold's last name, Naivold. It must come from Nielsen and Karnvold. In my mind I was like, where would this make sense? It never really made sense to me that someone would just decide, hey, let's just join our names. But I think it makes sense in this theory. Naivold could be like a double barrel name. So they didn't want to go with Nielsen Karnvold, so they went with Naivold. I think this makes sense here. Another possibility if Boris is their child is that in the alt world, Boris is taken, not Mikkel. Ulrich still has a child to go back in time to try and find, where he'll beat Helga. But this time it's not Mikkel, it's Boris. But of course, Boris actually changed dimension, didn't just go back in time, so Ulrich wouldn't even have found him even if he went to the correct time, I think. As I've stated before though, any Nielsen, any Karnvold, Boris could be their child. Again, Peter is hard to predict. He arrived in Winden after his father was in a car accident that left him in a home. This late appearance has led people to believe that he was actually from a different time or a different world. Also, the black and white photo on Adam's family picture wall would imply that he is from the past. Some people theorize that Peter is not the actual son of Helga, as they cannot see Helga having a child. Well, what if he didn't? Here's my out-of-the-box theory for this episode. What if Magnus and Franziska are the parents of Peter? Let that sink in. This would explain the black and white picture, as he would be born in the distant past where the Travelers ended up, which I assume is around 1888 if it was to follow the 33-year rule. I think this theory fits perfectly, because if you've realized what I'm saying that Charlotte is Elizabeth's mother, and vice versa, and Peter is Franziska's father, and Franziska is his mother. Charlotte was raised by someone else, Peter was raised by someone else. Doesn't that just fit? Helga Doppler has two parents in the show, Bernd and Greta. However, when speaking to Noah, Greta reveals that Helga was born in sin. To me, this reads as one of two things. Either Helga is born as a result of a rape, which would be a really tragic way for a tragic character like Helga to enter the world, or he could be the result of an affair. On an officially released family tree, there is a question mark next to Daniel Karnvold, which tells me that we will learn the answer of Enos's mother. Now, most people would assume that a traveller such as Hannah would be the perfect candidate, but as I've explained before, she's too old. I'm not quite sure of any other candidates. It wouldn't surprise me then if this was just a result of more family politics, not time travel. Is it possible that Greta had an affair with Daniel Karnvold to have Enos, then did it again the next time to have Helga, but then she pretended that actually Helga was burnt? I'm now well aware that this video is getting quite long, so I'll just end with a few quick theories or ideas to get you thinking. In Season 2, Episode 6, Ulrich asks Hannah what she would wish for if she could start over. She replies, a world without Winden. I believe this is a clue to the fact that if the cycle didn't exist, Winden wouldn't either. Maybe Winden only exists because that's where Sic Mundus settled. Why did Agnes leave Sic Mundus and talk with Claudia? I think Claudia worked with Sic Mundus and the Eve-like figure at some point, before maybe they turned against her or she turns against them. I think when this betrayal happened, Agnes actually remained loyal to Claudia. Or maybe she was just following orders from Claudia the whole time. Or maybe she was following orders from Sic Mundus and she was taking advantage of Claudia. Is trying to create the new world what creates the problem to begin with? When they try to create the new world, it won't succeed. Maybe there's even a possibility that some characters will be pulled to the other world, like Boris Neivold, Clausen's brother maybe? Well, there we go. Thanks for sticking with me. I really wanted to get as much theories out there as possible before the start of the season, because I know people like to go over them in their mind. And in my opinion, more fuel to the fire is good. So this video's been a long one, I'll leave it there, but I will say, my next video will come out before Season 3. It won't be a theories video, but I will be making a prediction, so keep an eye out for that. Until then, I think there's enough time for another 3 rewatches before Saturday. Bye!